We've got William Whitelaw on the show today to talk about his hockey journey and his time at Michigan. And then we got Sebastian High on the show to talk all about William Whitelaw's future with the Blue Jackets. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. We've got a prospect interview for you today. I sat down with William Whitelaw of the University of Michigan. We talked a little bit about his hockey journey, how he's doing at Michigan, like hopes for the future, think all of that good stuff. And then I thought I would bring in an expert as well. So I've got Sebastian High of Locked On NHL Prospects, and we're talking a little bit about the progression that we're seeing in Whitelaw's game, his future as a Blue Jacket, what his ceiling is, and when we could see him in the Union Blue jersey. So I'm just going to get right into my chat with William, and then after we're done with that, we will turn it over to Sebastian as well. So that's all coming up. But first, I'm going to turn it over to past me and William Whitelaw. I'm here today with Blue Jackets prospect William Whitelaw. Was a third-round draft pick a couple of seasons ago, and I guess let's start off with something about the draft itself. Like when you played junior hockey growing up, you played from a really early age. When did you realize that being drafted was something that was possible?
Yeah, I think maybe when you first get to Shattuck, I think, well, obviously as a kid, you always want to play in the NHL. That's your number one goal. But I think when I first got to Shattuck, and for me, just walking to the rink and knowing the same guys before you that walked to that rink, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Toews, now Macklin Celebrini, all those guys, you just know that it's a hockey factory. And if you want to make the most out of it, you can definitely put yourself in a good situation to play in the National Hockey League. And I think that's when I started realizing that if I want to go anywhere, those guys were here in the same situation as I was, and I want to be able to do what they did and ultimately play in the NHL.
What was the draft experience like for you? Did you know that Columbus wanted you, or was that just kind of a surprise at the time?
Yeah, I mean, it was the combine was obviously a whirlwind, talking to a bunch of teams there, and then it's kind of just like a waiting game. You think some certain teams like you. I knew Columbus liked me. Talked to them a couple times throughout the season. Just had a good feeling with them. But yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't really know where I was going to go. I think I was kind of all over the board. But yeah, it's just it's a crazy experience. Just sitting there waiting with your family, and then when your name gets called, it's obviously it's an unbelievable feeling. I kind of just blacked out.
Yeah, I bet.
With my parents, and I was just the happiest kid in the world. So it was a really awesome experience.
Yeah, I bet. Let's talk about kind of you as a player a little bit. What kind of player is Columbus getting now that they've drafted you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're getting a hard 5'9", 180-pound winger who flies up and down the ice and rips the puck and loves to score goals and make high-end elite plays. And I think for me as a small guy, being a 200-foot player, that's one thing I'm working on. But I think, they're going to get an electrifying forward who can put the puck in the net for sure.
Obviously, Columbus has had a lot of success with some smaller players in recent time, but is there a player in the game that you kind of model your game after? Was there anyone that you when you were growing up, you were oh, I want to be the next that guy? Or
yeah, I mean, growing up a little bit in the recruiting process, especially, I really liked Cole Caulfield. I just think the way he can obviously score is second to none. I think he does a really good job at it. And just guys like Braden Point and Brad Marchand, just how hard they play, their compete level, and their just versatility up and down the lineup. I think obviously those are very elite players, and I think I kind of try to take things from all those guys, but I think I have a really good high-end scoring touch. So that's one thing I really take pride in.
Yeah, for sure. You got to aim high as well, right? Like, if
Oh yeah.
if you're gonna want to be someone, you might as well want to be Brad Marchand.
Oh yeah.
Obviously we've talked about like your goal scoring, your 200-foot game. Like, what's the aspect that you take the most pride in your game?
Yeah, I mean, I just think making my teammates around me better. I think no matter where I play in the lineup, like I just want to make sure that I'm someone who's easy to play with, and guys like playing with, and guys look for me, ask questions or whatever. Like I just think I just like to make my teammates around me better, and ultimately that helps my game too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the NCAA. Like, did you always want to play college? Did you think about going to like the other, like to major junior? Like, you played a year at Wisconsin and then moved. Like, was always the plan to go to Wisconsin, or was there other options that you were like?
Yeah, I mean, my rights are with Tri-City Americans at WHL. I've definitely thought about it. I just think the nice part definitely about going to the CHL is the games played. Like obviously playing that many games is, I mean, the one thing you want to do every day is play a game. So I think that's obviously a big thing. But I just think like the thing with colleges is like you're playing against like I think college is just another level. Like the strength, the speed, the size. It's just definitely a lot different. And I think just like the strength and conditioning aspect of it, like being able to go to college, you play less games, which obviously sucks, but you you definitely get way bigger in the gym, and you prioritize that more as long as getting the college experience.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you moved this summer, transferred over to Michigan. Like, was there just more opportunities there? Was it because every Blue Jacket prospect seems to go to Michigan these days, or was it, was there something else going on there that you just like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
transfer to Michigan?
yeah, no, it was definitely a hard situation. I originally was committed to Tony Granato, Wisconsin, and then I was going to originally decommit and then explore my options, but he told me to stay tight. Wisconsin's a unbelievable place. That's what he was telling me, and it truly is. It's a great place. I really enjoyed my time there, and at the end of the day, like I made a lot of great friends and guys I still talk to every day at this point too. At the end of the year, I just made a decision that I didn't think it was the best fit for me, and yeah, so it was just obviously it's hard to leave a place like that, playing with all your best friends and whatever. But at the end of the day, I thought it was best for me. So sometimes you got to make a tough decision.
Yeah, for sure. What's the Michigan experience been like so far? Because I feel like every guy that I talk to that played in Michigan is like, yeah, this is the best time of my life at Michigan. Like, what makes it so special there?
Yeah, no, it's been unbelievable. I just think just the on ice development here is unbelievable, and I think the campus atmosphere and lifestyle is great here too. Like obviously being in the Big Ten, being able to go to all other sporting events like basketball, football, and all the other events, but obviously like the football program here is unbelievable. Like going to the games in the big house is truly a wonderful experience. So that's one thing that's really big here. But yeah, everything else has been great too.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite arena to play in apart from obviously the one at Michigan?
Yeah, I really like the Kohl Center. I'm not gonna lie. I think that's a cool place to play, especially when a team like Michigan or Minnesota goes in there. From experience, I think that's obviously when it's 17,000 sold out. It's pretty cool to play in. And then Penn State's really cool to play in too. I like playing at Pagula.
Cool. What's been your best memory of the season so far? Like, obviously there's still a ways to go, but has there been anything so far that you're like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna remember about this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think senior night was special last week and beating the Gophers. I think that was really huge and it was really cool and just great for the seniors and all of us to be a part of something that they helped build here. So I think that was probably one of the coolest things here so far.
Have you got any goals for the season? Is there anything that like you want to accomplish, either like a personal goal or obviously like the goal as a team is to win the whole thing, right? But is there anything like specific that you're like, I want to do this year specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like you said, like national championships, the end all be all, and that's the goal. And anything up short is a failure. So I think for us and me personally, like just like finding ways to do everything I can to help the team win. And I think me scoring goals definitely helps that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about Columbus. Did you know much about it before getting drafted there? Like, I feel like it's a city that no one really people always like just assume that it's kind of boring there, and then they get there and they're like, oh, actually, it's great. Like, what did you know about Columbus before?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know a whole lot. I mean, obviously, growing up, Rick Nash was obviously there, and he's the player dev guy there. So watching what he did there was pretty special. And then I watched Cam Atkinson a little bit when he was there too. So just yeah, that a little bit. I didn't know too much about the city of Ohio itself, like Columbus, Ohio, but obviously I knew Youngstown because I played there. But yeah, nothing. I didn't know anything crazy, but it was super cool when I got there.
Do you know any of the guys, or is it like, do you have friends on the team yet, or is it just?
Well, yeah, like Adam comes down here a lot, so when he has free time, so I've got to chat with him a little bit. And then Brinley was my roommate last year, and at camp, and then obviously he went here, so I know him pretty well. And a lot of the other young prospects I know pretty well. So, but not too many guys in the team, no.
Yeah, all to come, I'm sure. What is like? Obviously, there's still some of the season left, and then hopefully, big summer of training, going to dev camp, probably rookie camp, etc. during the summer. Is there anything that like you want to work on in order to have a really big summer? To obviously the goal is to make the Blue Jackets, right? Maybe not next year, but eventually the goal is to make the Blue Jackets. Like what are you kind of looking at as like, right, I need to work on this or this or this to like put yourself in the best position to make the team?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like in the NHL, like obviously guys are super skilled, and I think my skill level's there for sure, and so is my shot. I just think while rounding out my game, being a good 200-foot player, and then for me, just getting bigger in the gym. Like I'm 5'9", so you got to be able to handle all the big guys out there, which I don't really have a problem with. But obviously, the stronger you are, the better, and it'll definitely benefit you.
Yeah, has that kind of not changed necessarily, but like, does being 5'9" like affect how you approach like what you do in the gym or what you do on the ice, or is it just kind of you get out there, you play your game, and everyone else is going to have to just kind of deal with it? Or have you kind of tried to adapt your game to being kind of one of the smaller guys?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care about my size. To be honest. It's just definitely a point of emphasis that a lot of people look at, especially during the NHL draft prospect. Obviously, there's not too many 5'9" guys in the NHL, but I just think the way I play, it honestly doesn't matter. So I just try to. I mean, I'll go in the corner with Chara. I don't care.
You no, I love to hear that, and I feel like that's a thing that you hear from like every 5'9" guy, and like as someone who is 5'9" and was a goalie, like I get it. But it is always fun when guys are like, yeah, no, I'll fight anyone. I'll go in the corner against anyone. It's great. Let's finish off. What do you do when you're not playing hockey? Like, do you have any hobbies? Is it just kind of hang out with your buddies? Like, do you have anything that you do that's not hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say golf, but I'm just terrible at it. So I feel like that's a typical hockey answer is golf. But no, I like to wake surf a lot with my friends in the summer in Minnesota. There's obviously a lot of lakes. So go out on my buddies' boats and stuff and have a good time and wake surf. And then spend time at the lake, fish a little bit. Yeah, just try to find things to do outside the rink that are always fun. But I like staying at the rink.
Yeah, obviously. It's the best place to be, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's finish off. Obviously, the Blue Jackets have the outdoor game at the Shoe coming up this weekend. Are you able to make the trip across to Columbus for that, or are you like how cool is it to see the Shoe kind of in? Obviously, OSU is the enemy right now, but like how do you feel about the outdoor game? Is that kind of something that you're like, man, I would love to do that one day?
No, I think every single kid will say it that grew up in Canada, the United States in a cold part. Like you grow up playing in the outdoors, and there's truly nothing better than playing outdoor hockey. And I would have said that was my favorite game here in Michigan, but we lost, so you can't really say that one when we played OSU. But it was a cool experience, and I think those guys are gonna have a blast playing it.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, thanks for coming to chat. I appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of the season. Obviously, Michigan is a little bit the enemy, but because of all of the Blue Jackets prospects at Michigan, I think a lot of Blue Jackets fans are just kind of quietly enjoying watching you guys have success. Hopefully you guys continue to have success, and we'll hopefully see you guys in the Frozen Four at the end of the season.
Oh yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Coming up in a minute, I've got more chat about William Whitelaw, but first I've got to tell you all about Indeed, because you've just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday, but you have no idea how to find amazing candidates fast. Well, I've got the answer for you. Indeed. Easy to use. It is the best job site out there. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidate faster. I have been unlucky enough to be job hunting in the past. Indeed is always the job site that I would use. I think it's the easiest to use. I think it's the one with the best results. And so I can only imagine it's just as good when you are the person hiring. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. So we've just heard from William about his hockey journey, his time at Michigan, his plans for the future. Is he going to make the Blue Jackets? We sure hope so. And I figured let's check in with someone that knows a lot more than I do about prospects, because I know just enough to make me dangerous, as I always say. But I've got host of Locked On NHL Prospects, USHL scout over at Elite Prospects, and my very good friend Sebastian High has come to talk a little bit about William Whitelaw, what he's seen from him since his draft, and what his ceiling is for the Blue Jackets, because I think there's potential there for a third round pick, right, Sebastian?
There definitely is. The skill with this player is undeniable. I mean, he's a 5'9", 174-pound right shot centerman. For those who want to know the profile of the player, so an undersized forward, but with just blossoming skill and a bunch of creativity. A lot of what makes him really special are just very refined mechanics. This is a wonderful skater to watch. He's a really mechanically gifted skater. He looks like a natural when he's moving around on the ice, and his handling is similarly fluid alongside that. And even his physicality has gotten a lot better since his draft year in terms of withstanding contact, which has made the NCAA game work a lot better for him. He's still not a top 6 player in Michigan at this point. He's been playing largely third line minutes, playing between 11 and 14 minutes most nights, but getting a couple games with 18 minutes in a top 6 capacity because, again, he has the skill to be able to complement players like Michael Hage playing up the lineup, and has a really, really hard, wicked release. He's very versatile shooter as well. So he brings a variety of offensive tools to the equation. And it's one of the reasons that Columbus swung on him, despite there being question marks about how is his game going to translate to the NHL as being an undersized player, and some other questions as well, and why he was available in the third round at 66th overall. But on skill alone, definitely worth a swing here for the Blue Jackets.
He had a pretty good freshman season for Wisconsin, entered the transfer portal, went to Michigan. Is it just that he's playing on a much deeper lineup in Michigan than he was in Wisconsin? Obviously his stat line is similar, but I would have hoped to see kind of a little bit of a jump. I think he's on 14 points in 30 games this season, I think it is. Is that just because, no shade to Wisconsin, but I feel like Michigan really is kind of like the gold standard of college hockey, right?
It really is, and I think it was a great decision for him to move to Michigan in the offseason. Wisconsin is one of the programs in the NCAA that scares me a little bit from a scouting perspective. Players rarely flourish in their system. A lot of players stagnate. We saw that with Charlie Stramel, a player who was drafted 21st overall by the Minnesota Wild. And in his draft year season, he had 12 points in 30-something games. And I don't even believe he exceeded 10 points in his D+1 year. And now with Michigan State University, he's almost a point-a-game piece in a top 6 capacity, playing a much more active role. But Wisconsin's been a difficult place for prospects to progress since the Caulfield era of Wisconsin Badger hockey. Whereas the University of Michigan has just a wonderful development program. They work with players very hands-on and consistently improve not only the tools like the skating ability, the habits underlying that, the scanning, the awareness on the ice, but also the physical habits and the intensity that you need to also play professional hockey in this day and age. So a lot of work goes into these players that then also get a lot smoother transitions, in my opinion, to professional hockey than from other college programs. And yes, he is playing down the lineup. That's definitely playing a role here. He still has the same kind of scoring rate that he did last season. It hasn't been a regression, but he has been playing less minutes. So that lack of opportunity has to be noted. And this has also not been the most dominant of University of Michigan teams this year. They're just above 500 over the last 2 months. They're not winning all that many games. And while, yes, you would maybe hope for Whitelaw to then have gotten a chance up the lineup and entrenched himself as a top 6 piece on a bit more of a struggling Michigan team. Hasn't happened just yet, but again, this is a player that was a bit immature in his draft year, still had a lot of runway, and he was always more of a long-term project. Give him his last 2 years in college, he's going to get a much bigger role, and look at that production to just absolutely boom, because the skill, the offensive creativity, intelligence are really, really big assets with William Whitelaw.
I guess let's talk about that next a little bit. Obviously, the Blue Jackets right now, their development is in a place where they have all of these young pieces that are starting to hit, right? And hopefully, the hope is that they can add more pieces next year, more pieces a couple of years after that. Like you've said, another 2 years in college for Whitelaw. Is that your thought on the best plan for him? I think they have to sign him at the end of next season or lose his rights, I believe. But is this okay, we won't see him in the NHL for 3-4 years? Is this he's going to go from college to the AHL to the NHL? What do you see what's his ideal path of progression?
I think it will be a one step at a time type of progression, not a jumping different steps. I definitely think the AHL is going to be a step between the NCAA and the NHL. Even a player like Gavin Brindley, who's a lot more NHL style in terms of that aggression, the pace, just the checking ability that Whitelaw doesn't really have in the same fashion. Even with that, he's been a half-point a game player in the AHL this year. He still needs a little bit of time too before being a true NHL piece for Columbus. I think it's going to be a similar step on the path for Whitelaw, but also likely with a full college campaign. I'm not sure if his contract expires next year or the year after, because he still has, I think, 2 more years of college eligibility. But I could be wrong about that in terms of when the contract expires. But if he's able to still have 2 more years in college before signing, I'd give that to him. If next year has to be his last year in terms of the signing rights, which I wouldn't.
I also might be wrong about that. It's
okay.
I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. But
I think he has 2 more seasons, and I would give him those 2 more seasons in the NCAA to just refine and also to be potentially the leading offensive piece at Michigan for 2 years would be wonderful for his development, and he will just be continuously surrounded by intelligent and skilled players. But the AHL should be a step, because the adjustment in physicality and pace is a big one between college and pro hockey, and Whitelaw's going to have to adjust to that. But in maybe a 4-year timeline, 3 to 4 year timeline, I think that Whitelaw could be a skilled third line forward who can be a second power play piece. It has a really dangerous shot, fantastic hands, and just works at a really high end mental pace that you could also pair him on a first power play with the best offensive pieces like the Fantillis, like the Kent Johnsons, like the rest of them. And in terms of offensive creativity and thinking at that highest pace, I think Whitelaw could get to that level as well.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, player comparisons are not the most helpful thing, and I've kind of grown out of them in these kind of scouting conversations. I was talking to Whitelaw about this a little bit, and players that he models his game after, and the Braden Point, Brad Marchand, those are the gold standard of small players, basically, right? But is there someone that you think that he like, what kind of career would you expect him to have? Is there a player out there that you're like, okay, if he turns into a Braden Point, that would be incredible. Is there a more realistic, like, how likely is that he's going to turn to Braden Point, or is there a player that maybe plays like lower down in an NHL lineup that you think, oh, okay, this is an achievable career path for him?
If absolutely everything goes right, maybe like a Mike Camilleri kind of like second line 35 goal scorer. Like if everything goes right, which I think maybe 10% shot at reaching that level. In terms of not a player with much NHL experience to this point, but another player that's been on a perhaps similar trajectory in terms of being hyper skilled USHL forward who goes drafted lower than he probably should on skill alone, but then progresses in the NCAA to the point to then also making the jump to the NHL and being a really good skilled bottom six player out of the gate. Jackson Blake of the Carolina Hurricanes. In terms of a trend and the types of things in his game that Whitelaw can still work on, I think he can learn a lot from a player like Jackson Blake, the way he thinks the game off puck, how proactive he is also with his stick on both sides, also using his stick proactively in the offensive zone with possession off the cycle to hit sticks away in order to open up passing lanes and then get the puck in space. Blake is a very intelligent, proactive, and cerebral player, and also has the same kind of like undersized skill elements like William Whitelaw does, and that's a player that I definitely think Whitelaw can learn a little bit about in terms of how he's made that jump to the NHL look quite smooth on a very strong Carolina Hurricanes team this season.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to hear a little bit more from Sebastian later this week about some other Blue Jackets prospect. But if you can't wait the 12 hours or whatever between these episodes coming out, where can people find you online, Sebastian? Where can they find more of your work about prospects?
All of my work is kind of centralized on Twitter at High Sebastian, or X now, of course. But more than anything, honestly, it's just the podcast Locked On NHL Prospects on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Constantly uploading my work there as well, or at Elite Prospects, where I post an article every 2 weeks or so on the top performing prospects of the week, and also am the USHL scout over there. So looking forward to our next ranking coming out in about a month or a month and a half's time from now.
Awesome. Cannot wait. Thanks for coming to chat, Sebastian.
Thanks so much.
That's all I've got for today. We'll be back later today, actually. I had so much fun talking to Sebastian that we spun it out into a whole other episode. We're talking about Dennis Matejchuk, we're talking about Jordan Dumais, we're talking about Gavin Brindley, we're talking about Luca Del Belbaluz, we're talking about all of those good prospects that we are so excited about. So that's going to be dropping later today. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. And like I said, we'll be back later today with another prospect episode, and then we'll be back tomorrow as well, previewing the game against the Red Wings, which is going to be a big one, folks. But until then, stay tuned for tonight's episode, and until then, stay locked on.